Welcome to Your Biz, Your Rules with Dara Paddy, the podcast here to help you weave the perks and quirks of your personality into your business. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss another episode. Now let's get to it. Hello, and welcome back to Your Biz, Your Rules. I am here today with a very special interviewee, one of my mastermind sisters, Marie Yates. Hello. Introduce yourself.
Hello. I am a mastermind sister. That'll do, won't it? No, I am a writer, speaker, and social entrepreneur, which are fancy words for saying I hide away in the hills, playing with words and dogs, mainly.
Which is the dream.
That is the dream. Living the dream in the Brecon Beacons.
So you said you're a writer, but I think you're a little bit more than that. You're downplaying it a little bit there.
I have a trilogy of books that have been published and done quite well. So the first one, Reggie and Me, that made the final of the People's Book Prize a long time ago now. That was 2015, which feels like a very long time ago. The second one, Sammy and Me, that came out a couple of months ago. And the third one, Frankie and Me, is out September 2018. But as you know, it is real and in book form, so it is just waiting for its release date now.
Yes, for those of you listening, I just got the very first preview of this book in physical form, which is very exciting. It makes me feel very special. It has just arrived, so the author copies that we're very lucky we get some author copies to send out so that we can start getting reviews and endorsements and that sort of thing. So they have literally just arrived at our very snowy front door. So yeah, you're the first to see Frankie and Me in book form. So you've written your own trilogy, but you also ghostwrite, don't you? You write for other people. I do, and I love doing that. So we've I've also written another book with a friend about a business thing. So I've got books that I've turned into businesses and businesses I've turned into books. And I love ghostwriting. So I write on behalf of other people. So I write, I don't ghostwrite fiction because I get so into the story that I then decide that the character needs to be doing something that is completely different to what the author thinks they should be doing. So I don't do that. So I ghostwrite business and personal story books for people. So people who are using their own experience and expertise to share awesome messages out into the world. And I pretend to be them. And I absolutely love it. Well, I ghostwrite a lot of articles and that's one of my favourite things to do just because you learn so much while you're doing it. Like I write for people who do things that are totally opposite to what I do and like so far out of my wheelhouse, but I find it fascinating because you just get to soak up all of this crazy knowledge. Definitely. We are the people you want on a quiz. So true. Yeah, I've learned so much about things that I have, in some cases don't want to learn, if I'm honest, but I just love becoming so absorbed in something that the writer, the author of the actual words, they're so passionate about it, and so when you're talking to them, you almost absorb that passion, and then trying to make sure you get the right words and the right tone and all of that. It's just a really fascinating process. And then, if you then get them to say, "Oh, that really sounds like me," then you're winning, and that's a brilliant feeling. I've often said that I would be the ideal partner to take on Pointless, which for any non-UK listeners is my very favourite quiz show that rewards you for having totally pointless knowledge. We could do that. We should do that. Let's go on Pointless. We could totally win Pointless. We could. How are you at sport? I'm terrible at the sports questions. Yeah, I have ghostwritten quite a few books for athletes because I used to work in sport. Perfect. And they're fascinating people because they have the most incredible stories, and it's just awesome to read what they've achieved is one thing, but how they've achieved it is just incredible. But they really don't have the desire to write. It's like they want the book and they absolutely want to share their message, but they cannot be asked to sit and put the words in order. So I get the best of both worlds. You get to kind of get completely infused by these people
learn about how they've succeeded, so you can steal all the tips, which is amazing, and then hand over the book. So I reckon I could do the sport bit. It's the history I'm not good with.
Oh, I'm brilliant at history.
There you go. And geography, not good at geography either.
I'm all right at geography.
Then we're dream team, we're ready.
We're filling each other's gaps. I love it. But yeah, what you said about the athletes who want ghostwriters, that really applies in the online business world as well, because you see so many people who want all of the digital content and all of that stuff, but they don't actually want to create it.
Yes.
They just sort of want it there.
Well, it's a different sort of person, isn't it? The sort of person that has the desire to get up at stupid o'clock in the morning and run around the hills or swim in really cold water and do all of that. That's a different mindset to being able to sit and put words in order quite often. So when you're sat with them, you really get all of that enthusiasm and all of that learning, and then you get to go and sit with a cup of tea while they're pounding the pavements. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well, it is brilliant because it's given us a job.
Yes, yeah. And make sure they don't write. That's what I say. They don't want to write it.
So you mentioned your trilogy, you've mentioned your ghostwriting, and then you do all of the digital content that goes with both your business and your social enterprise. So that's a lot of words to get done. So I was wondering if you have a writing ritual that help you stay so productive.
The ultimate ritual is the planning, but that's quite boring. So in terms of the day-to-day stuff, it has to be getting up and out and getting some fresh air. That's the thing. If I tried to come in into the study and sit down and write, I'd really struggle. But I think that it's the movement that brings the motivation. So if I'm out and moving and out with the dogs or out for a run or something, and also living here, it would be criminal not to. So I'm out, fresh air, and then feel awesome when I get back, cup of tea, and I'm good to go.
I love that. That's actually one of the reasons I got my dog. So I got her the weekend that I left my corporate job and went freelance, the very weekend, because I knew that otherwise I would never leave the house again. I'd start ordering all of my shopping in and never have a reason to get outside of the house.
I'll say I do that. Everything gets ordered in. But yes, I do have 2 giant reasons to leave the house on a regular basis. But they're also awesome company, because that frees your mind, doesn't it? So you're kind of playing and interacting with them. Fresh air, exercise, that's the perfect recipe for letting your brain just percolate its own ideas, and then you can come back and you're good to go. So it's, I don't know, I suppose it's quite a boring ritual, but at the same time, it's the only way I can get up and get going in the morning.
I think it's a good one though, because it is something that everybody can do. Even if you don't have dogs, you can still go and stand in the garden, or you can go and walk down the street. You can do something just to get yourself out of the space and then into the zone, I suppose.
Definitely. It's the movement, I think. It's the movement. Because also when you're planning, or anyone who's worked with me to plan things, it's about moving things around to figure out how stories develop and ideas develop. And the more you're moving, the more the ideas come. Certainly for me, anyway. So
you swiftly gloss past the planning phase because you think it's boring, but I am not bored by your planning. Like, I want to hear about that, please.
So planning wise, this is for everything, but I for a mutual friend of ours, I work on a 90-day planning process, so you can easily whip out a couple of books in 90 days if you're escaping to the hills and you have nothing else to do other than walk around a lot. The planning process for writing is you do not start writing until you've done the planning. So I think it's quite an overwhelming thing to think, I'm going to write a book, and you sit and you open your laptop and then you've got this blank screen in front of you and you genuinely don't know where to start. And I think a lot of people who I've worked with who are writing their own books, who are sort of going through the process and wanting to write themselves, they quite often send me a chapter or two and say, this is what I've started, but I don't know where to go with it. And it's almost like everything they've ever thought of has appeared in these first 2 chapters, because they've been so excited that they've got started that it's just, there's no structure to it. And it's usually quite emotional, it's usually quite emotive as well if you're reading it. It's a bit of a mess, usually, which a first draft should be, so that's fine. But it's like every idea that has ever popped into your head that you want to put in a book has got there, and then you think, well, I don't really know what to do for the other 100,000 words I'm going to need to write in order for this to be a proper book. So the planning part is about knowing who you're writing for and about being able to structure each chapter, building in the time to write that, the research that you might need to do, the amount of words you're looking at, the genre, how you're going to write it. If all of that's done first, then when you actually sit down and write, you've got everything you need to write those chapters, and then it's fun. Then it's really, really good fun.
I like that, because it's not the romantic vision of writing a book, but it's the activity that will make it become a reality.
Yeah, and you've just seen me hold book number 3. There's no feeling on earth like it the first time you kind of go, I did this, and I put these words in order. But that started on a massive A2 piece of paper, mapped out month by month, because it's a diary, so it's over the space of a year, and how many chapters I'd need to have in each year, what would, the natural things that happen in a year, when's Christmas, when are the sixth form holidays, and it's all mapped out. Then you have all your ideas that need to go in for the sort of messages we wanted to finish with, because this is the final one in the trilogy, and then you start writing it. So yeah, it's not a, well, certainly for me, it wasn't a fun kind of romantic notion of sitting and whiling away the hours, just having a lovely time writing. It's hard work to motivate yourself day after day to do it, but it's not as hard as motivating yourself to go into an office. That's for sure. So it is living the dream, definitely.
I think when a lot of people think about writing a book, they have this sort of montage of images that goes through their head of what it's really like. Like they'll sit there typing away on an antique typewriter, or they'll be there in front of a roaring fire with a glass of red wine, or like a fancy leather-bound journal and a fountain pen or something like that. And it's a lot, I don't know, it's a lot like dirtier, a lot grittier than that. You actually have to do the work. You can't just sort of sit there in comfort and in warmth and the words will just appear miraculously on a page.
They have never appeared miraculously, and it's that whole thing, isn't it, of like waiting for inspiration. That just seems like such a bizarre concept to me, because if you have the luxury of waiting for inspiration, then brilliant. But I think that's partly that morning ritual, that morning routine. You have to create that motivation and inspiration, because you've got to come home and do the work. That's it. If you want the book, if you want to hold that book at the end of the day, you've got to write the words. And there's certainly no typewriter. I haven't done leather-bound journals. I've done a lot of post-it notes and A3 paper. It's hard, isn't it? Because you think writing a book, it's an awesome achievement, and it's for people who want to write. It's very cool to be able to say, I've done it, and you can hold your book and you can do all of those things. But the reality, I think, is why most people don't finish their books. It's the reality of doing the work every day.
I completely agree with what you're saying about the nonsense of sitting there and waiting for inspiration, because, oh my God, what a load of rubbish. I truly believe that the only way you find inspiration is by creating. You have to create something to like set that snowball off, and it snowballs and snowballs, and then you get the inspiration, you get the ideas, but you can't just sort of wait around for...
No, definitely not.
It's like something ridiculous, like, oh yeah, I really want a roast dinner tonight, I'm gonna have a roast dinner, and then just like sitting there in a chair expecting it to just happen.
I love that analogy, because that is one of my favourite dinners. No, that is true though, isn't it? It's like the work that goes into it versus the 15 minutes tops it takes to eat it. It's it.
Yeah.
I'm hungry, but thanks for that.
Yeah, not quite roast dinner time of the day.
Almost.
So we've touched on this slightly already, but so many business owners have this write a book thing on their bucket list. And I mean, personally, sometimes I don't know if it's just they want to be able to say they've written a book, or if they really want to write a book, but that's another topic.
Well, that's when they can get a ghostwriter. And they get the best of both worlds. Whether you go, yeah, I've written this, because it's absolutely theirs. Their name on the front. Jobs are good.
Well, yes, everyone listening. If you want a book but don't want to write a book, Marie is your woman.
I'm your girl.
Okay, so for those who actually want to write their own book, how would you suggest they get started?
So I've got 5 sort of quick steps. And the first 4 don't actually involve starting your book, which is brilliant, I think. So the first one is know your reader. And for any business owner, that's usually the same as their sort of ideal client. So knowing who it is they're writing for, who it is they're talking to, who it is they want to share their message with. If you know who that person is, you can then start writing for them, as opposed to, writing it because you've got a message and you start putting it all from your perspective because you want to share these things, but that might not be how your reader receives that message. So knowing your reader is your first thing. Second thing is understanding the message that you want to share through the book. So business owners who, I don't know, who's an example. So if we'll take mine. So I've got a social enterprise and we do 3 or 4 different things as part of that social enterprise, but trying to put all 3 or 4 elements into one book would be ridiculous. Even though there's a similar underlying message, there are different audiences for each thing. So if you know exactly what it is you want to say, you can then work backwards from there to think, when somebody puts that book down, what message do you want them to have taken from it? What do you want them to sort of ring up their best mate and go, you've got to read this because it'll teach you X, or you'll learn X, or it's hilarious because of X. It's that bit that you need to understand. So if you know your reader and your message, you then put those things together. So third step is, how will your reader receive that message? So do they want something funny? Do they want something poignant? Do they want something really thoughtful and mindful as they're reading? You need to then start to figure out how you're going to put everything together so that the message you're sharing matches the way the reader will understand it. And that then really helps with things like structure. So if you're writing for clients who are really absolutely exhausted, and you're teaching them how to create more time in their day, or not be burnt out, or to plan their days properly, or whatever it is that they need to hear, you're not going to write that in 5,000 word chapters, because somebody who's exhausted isn't going to read 5,000 words. They're going to need short, sharp bursts. So how is that message going to be received? Then we have the planning, ding, 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 which is amazing because that involves buckets and buckets full of Post-it notes. So you're literally writing absolutely everything you want to go in that book. I use Post-it notes. You can use these things called, I think they're computers, that you speak of sometimes, where you move things around on the screen, but I'm having none of that. I'm having Post-it notes all over the walls. So everything you want to go in that book, and then from there you can start to move them around and see how your chapters start to form, and whether you need sections, whether you need chapters within sections, and you can really see it evolve as you start to move them around. And it's only when you've got to that stage that you get to step number 5, which is just sit down and write the damn thing. Because at some stage you can procrastinate plan for hours upon hours, but at some point you have to sit down and start writing, and that's when you'll find out if your structure works or not, because it will form and appear, or it won't, and then you just go back to step 1.
Easy as that.
Done. Yeah, job's a good one.
I think the whole knowing your person and knowing your message thing is beyond important, because I've read so many self-indulgent business and personal development books, and I just think I've wasted a week where I could have been reading something that was really amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a massive bugbear for me, and I rant about this an awful lot.
Yes, you do.
But you yes, I do. But you just see so many people who they'll just grab a whole bunch of blog posts they once wrote, stick it together and call it a book, or they'll screenshot a load of social media posts that they've done and call it a book. And I just think, what are you doing? Why are you putting more noise out into the world just so you can say you've written a book? At least put some effort in,
That's it. I always think I just love to have the books that I work on with people, or that I write, is that somebody will think there's enough value in there to not say what you've just said, but also to say to somebody else, oh, you've really got to read this because, and that because is the same as that very first message that you started to think about and really wanted to get across, because that's when you know you've jam-packed it full of value, because somebody has been able through the pages just to absorb that message, and then it's job done then, isn't it? You know, whatever it is you wanted to share is out there. And blimey, if anyone ever said that about a book I wrote, I'd be gutted.
Yeah, that's why I haven't actually named any books, because I know that people get attached to them, so I wouldn't want to actually say that about somebody. But yeah, I think because I adore books so much and I love to read, and I always have, I sound like a crazy person, but I always think there are so many books that I want to read and I don't have enough years left to actually read them all. So I feel offended when my time gets wasted. Yeah,
that's a week you're not going to get back.
It is.
But also, if you're writing, the more you read, the better you will write. And that's true. If you haven't got time to read, in my opinion, you also don't have time to write, because you have to. The more you read, the better your writing becomes. But you also learn more about what you like and don't like. So if you write a book, it's not going to have self-indulgent stories all the way through it, because you know that really just doesn't float your boat at all. But the style of writing and how it's written and how it's structured and all of those things, it's a lot easier to understand what you like through what you've read than it is to start like guessing your structure and putting it together that way.
Absolutely, because I can list like so many things that I don't like about these books, but I can also list so many things that I do like. And that, so when people use a lot of like witty quotes in their writing, I love that stuff.
You need to start making a list so you're ready for your book. What you love, what you don't.
Please, I've already got a list.
A longer list.
I've got many lists.
I have no doubt.
Both on paper and on the computer beast things. Which I know you're not a big fan of, but sorry, I'm a bit croaky here. So I do everything on paper first, everything. All of my planning, all of my drafts, everything is done longhand. But when I'm planning things, particularly with my business, I will then go and put it on a planning tool, like a tech thing, because I just find it easier to implement that way.
Yeah, see, I'm still pen and paper.
Yeah.
I have project plans on the computer. In a previous life, I had to do Prince 2, the project management. Yeah, it was. I mean, now there's a week of your life you never get back. So I can blitz a plan. So if I'm ghostwriting, that's all mapped out and planned, so that myself and the authors know what we're doing, how, and all of that. But it's really just in my diary what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Pen and paper, well, pencil, so you can rub it out. Then you don't have a mess. It's very important.
God, yeah, and when I think that's something that I've had to battle with many times over the years. I think it's one of the reasons I don't like humans. When they cancel plans and then you have to cross things out in pen in your planner. It's like
never write like that in pen. Never. That's a fatal mistake.
Learned the hard way.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially needing a new diary then, and then you've got to rewrite the whole of the year. That.
See, you joke, but I have.
No, I know that's an insight into my evenings there.
I used to do that when I was at college. So I would take all of my notes during my lessons, and then I'd go home and copy them all out in the appropriate colours and appropriate sections of my notebooks. Oh God, I'm a crazy person.
No, that's brilliant. You have a notebook for every different thing. Everything's colour coded. I think that's perfectly sane.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We're both equally insane, but
But yeah, I do think it's good to have a foot in both paper and tech.
I know you do. I'm edging there.
Joe, I think particularly when it's client stuff, because for me, if I'm doing client work, if I don't schedule it in, I won't do it.
Yes, it's scheduled. It's scheduled with a pencil. It's brilliant.
Well, I don't know. I've never found a planner that I've been able to fit my entire to-do list in, because I always have like 50,000 things to do.
Yeah, I think that says more about your to-do list than anything else.
Maybe when I calm down and say yes to less, I'll be able to sort out the perfect system.
I think you need to embrace the notebooks again.
Maybe. I have like treated myself to a couple of new notebooks for 2018.
Amazing.
Because I mean, it's the law that you have to start with fresh notebooks in the
Obviously. I mean, I don't know anyone who wouldn't do that.
No.
And I wouldn't trust them, I think, if they didn't do that.
It's shady.
Definitely.
So before we descend into more stationery-based ravings, I want you to tell us all a bit more about Team Luna, because, fun fact, your Team Luna emails are my very favourite emails to receive in my inbox. And I'm subscribed to an awful lot of things.
Thank you very much. Well done, me. Well, moving swiftly from notebooks there, we have Team Luna notebooks, which are legendary. So Team Luna, I mentioned the social enterprise earlier on, and that's something that has actually come from books. So there's so much you can do with books. It is ridiculous, which is why I love them so much, as I know you do. But I actually built a business from the first book in the trilogy, when it was just one, and it's now 3. So the book is it's about a teen survivor and the relationship between her and her rescue dog. So it's really looking at resilience and overcoming trauma that we can, in my humble opinion, can learn fabulous lessons from dogs. So because of that, and because one of my own boys was on the original cover of the book, Reggie and Me, he is called Reggie, funnily enough. I was asked a lot to take him with me when I went to do author visits and workshops and that sort of thing. And he managed to do things that, you know, as humans, we just can't do. He could reach people on a level that we just can't. And it was absolutely incredible. And the more we were asked to do it, the more I thought there was more to this than I first thought with the book. So we've created a social enterprise called Canine Perspective, and it is working. We've got a signature program called Canine Hope, and we work with survivors and rescue dogs. And that's something that now gets sort of rolled out around the country. Profits from what we sell goes to fund the programs. And it's the book that's literally been brought to life through this. So as we were working with survivors, there were so many really cool messages that were coming through. They're really obvious, I think, when you actually think about it and think about what we learn from dogs and the way that they can live in the moment, the way that they can learn to trust people again. Their resilience knows no bounds whatsoever. And the way that they learn is very similar to humans when they're overcoming trauma. So we thought that we're only a small enterprise. There's only so many places we can go and people we can reach. So with a group of survivors, we started to take some of the key messages that we were talking about and created our own little mascot called Luna. So she's our little rescue dog, beautifully designed by Stacey Swift, who's an awesome illustrator who created, she's just beautiful, I think. And she's a nondescript rescue pup who isn't linked to a particular breed, isn't linked to anything other than she's just a beautiful hound who shares our messages for us. And so we created Team Luna as a result of that. So it comes under the banner of Love Learning from Dogs, and we, funnily enough, will have a lot more books coming out 2018 and 19 with a lot of these sort of messages in and the stories in from the survivors we've worked with. But Team Luna is literally about resilience and humans who need to know that they are awesome because they've literally survived 100% of their rough days. And that survival rate is pretty impressive. So what we've done is we've created the emails that you very kindly have mentioned. So you just get a little letter from Luna on a Monday morning to brighten up your week. So you just sign up, get one of those. And we've got stuff, mugs and notebooks and stuff with Luna wisdom on, where those messages that have literally come from survivors on our projects get shared. And all the profits from those go straight back into the enterprise, and that funds us to go and do more work with survivor charities. So in a nutshell, that's how we turned a book into a business.
I love it. I love that there's that whole cycle of business book for you.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Luna emails are just brilliant because obviously they're written from the perspective of a dog, and I spend half of my life thinking that I'm having conversations with my dogs. So it really
resonates. Conversations. They are, yeah. So if you want Lunar wisdom, she's all yours.
I love it. Definitely go and subscribe. I'll leave a link in the show notes.
Thank you very much.
So I want to dial it back to your writing stuff again, because you don't just do ghostwriting, you also help people to write their books.
I do.
So I want to promote you a little bit. Tell everybody how they can do that, because I mean, it's nearly New Year, and you can bet your ass that everyone's going to write a book on their list of New Year's resolutions.
The bucket list. So I run it usually over 6 months. If it doesn't, some people who are working 24/7, that doesn't work. So we do it over a longer period of time, but the process is the same. We do all the planning together. So we bring out all of these messages, different characters. Some people have messages that they turn into fiction. So they are writing fiction books exactly as I did. So I used a personal story, and because I'm not a teenager and I am no longer cool and groovy, I created a teenager in the trilogy who could tell that story for me. So there are people doing that. So they turn their books into fiction. There are people writing business books where their own stories and their expertise in their own field comes out, and it's just amazing. This is where I really learn a lot. I get very excited about fiction and try not to argue when I think a character should do something else, because it is none of my business. But I get really into it. And then to the business books or fiction, they run along for about 6 months, and that includes writing the damn thing. That accountability is the thing that keeps people going. And because we have totally nailed that planning, the first month is planning, getting everything absolutely ready, so that then they can just sit in front of the computer and do the allocated words or chapters for that week or fortnight. We have a full edit included in what we do. I don't edit because I get so into it. It is ridiculous. And then you know how your brain reads the words that you're convinced were on the page, but they're not. So I have a wonderful team of editors who help with that. And then we either go through the process of self-publishing or getting it ready to pitch to agents and or publishers, depending on what the writer wants. So we'll do the full book proposal, finding how to get the agents, how to get the publishers, or we go down the self-publishing route. So within 6 months, they're literally holding their book in their hands.
Well, you can't get more exciting than that.
Sounds simple, doesn't it? See, that is how exciting it is. The dogs are that excited. This is why I do merging books and writing, because that's the sort of cheering you get.
Okay, so to wrap it up, what is your biggest guilty pleasure and how do you weave it into your work?
My biggest guilty pleasure is buying books and stationery, namely Post-it notes. That's it. But it's always for research or planning. Always. And I do have see again, I don't think it's a guilty pleasure because it's research, but I do read a lot of teen fiction and I love it. Absolutely love it.
And because it's research, it's a viable business expense.
Absolutely. And if my accountant is listening, it's all research. But yeah, that's got to be the big thing, books and stationery, without a doubt.
So just to wrap up, where can we find you online?
So my own website is marie-yates.co.uk, and you'll find links to My Story Counts, the writing stuff. You'll find links to the social enterprise, to Luna, and to anything else I may or may not be doing, including the trilogy. So that's the place to find everything.
Lovely. I will definitely put a link to that in the show notes so that everyone can come over and get lost in all the good stuff.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been great chatting books with you. I always love a little bit of a ramble about all things stationery.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Anytime. Thank you for listening to Your Biz, Your Rules. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave me an honest review on iTunes. As a little thank you, the first 150 people to leave me feedback will get access to Conquer Your Content Plan, my exclusive workbook designed to help you dream up, draft, and leverage strategic standout content in next to no time. See you next week.